Welcome back to Neranenah Scholars. I'm excited to continue this great conversation with Ben Sidran. Today we'll be discussing the iconic song, Over the Rainbow.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby.
The Wizard of Oz was like a new kind of animal. They'd never made a movie like that before. It wasn't animated like the Disney stuff, and they weren't sure what to do with it. And Yip Harburg convinced the studio to let him do through composing. Through composing means the story is being told by the music. Which is very common now in theater, but back then it wasn't. The action would go on and then it would stop and somebody would sing a song, and the song might have nothing to do with the action, and then the action would go back. He convinced the film studio to let him do the center part, the whole, when the house crashes and it all goes to color and you're in Munchkin land, the next 30 or 40 minutes is all sung. The story is all through composed, and every bit of it was written by Yip Harburg. He is the man who, quote, put the rainbow in The Wizard of Oz, because the original story of The Wizard of Oz didn't have a rainbow. There was no rainbow in it. And this idea of over the rainbow, of dreams and hopes, I mean, there are so many ways to read the Jewish experience into The Wizard of Oz. There's almost no way that you can't see it as a Jewish experience, and this longing for things that you already have, like the wizard says, but you already, here's a medal for courage because it's in you, and here's all these things, don't look outside of yourself for them. This whole premise was Yip Harburg. And in fact, most of the music that was written by Harold Arlen and Yip Harburg was written music first. Harold Arlen would write the songs and Yip would write the lyrics. And that was the case with Over the Rainbow. Arlen came up with this sweeping melody, and Yip claims he worked for a couple of weeks because this was a song that was going to be sung by this girl, this young girl who was missing her home and wanted to get back home somehow. And it couldn't be so grand, it had to be intimate. And the song starts with this great octave leap, somewhere, who could sing this without it being grand? And just the word, this is beautiful, really. Any two-syllable word would have done, any two one-syllable words would have done. To have come up with somewhere, which speaks to time, it speaks to place, it speaks to circumstance. It's peculiar to somebody like Yip Harburg.
Oh yeah, and I mean, this came about, wasn't there a week left in the production of the film or something, and Harold Arlen had the idea in a cab?
Well, it was Arlen and Harburg were hired for 14 weeks to do the music, and this was the 14th week, and they hadn't written this song. This was supposed to be the song for the girl, and they still hadn't come up with it. And apparently, Arlen was driving down Sunset Boulevard with his wife, told her to pull over, took out a piece of paper and wrote down the first part of the musical theme for Over the Rainbow, went home, and that night finished it, called Harburg at midnight and said, "You have to come over. I've got the song. Harburg ran over to Arlen's house, heard the song, and said, "I don't know. It sounds too theatrical for our little girl." And the story is that they decided to go to Ira Gershwin to mediate the argument between the two of them. And Ira said to Harold Arlen, "Play it slower, play it softer." And when he did, it revealed the song.
Yeah, it's often hard to hear today how unconventional some of Arlen's songwriting was back then. Speaking of this, in stormy weather especially.
These songs had an odd number of bars. They had odd movements. They had harmony that wasn't typical. And yet they all sounded perfect. Like that's the only way the song could be.
Don't know why there's no sun up in the sky. Stormy weather since my man and I ain't together. Keeps raining all the time.
There's so many funny stories, interesting stories about the production and how that movie got made. Even after they wrote the song and it was in the movie, the people at the film studio didn't believe in it and pulled it from the movie. And there was this back and forth for a couple of weeks where they do a screening of The Wizard of Oz, and Arland and Harburg would go to the screening, and the song wasn't in it. And they'd run up to the executive suite and say, "Where's our song? You have to have our song." And the executives say, "I don't know. I don't think that song's working." Of course, the song won the Academy Award. Obviously, it was working. But the whole thing was a comedy of errors, confronting not just musical genius, but a real moment in social history. That's the only way you can say it.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that movie or America without that song.
Incredible. Really, which tells you a lot about the geniuses who run show business. And most of them, 90%, were Jews themselves.
I wonder what they didn't like in it when they first heard it.
They thought it was too hard. They thought people wouldn't like it. It wasn't popular enough. It was too dramatic. It was. They literally said, "Well, nobody can sing the song. It has this octave leap in the front. No, and it won't be a popular song."
Oh, well, glad they went with it.
Yes, really. Well, this is one of those things that you don't have to say anything about. It's so obvious and so well known. Everybody knows this melody, knows this song, and the fact that it was almost on several occasions thrown out of the picture of The Wizard of Oz, it's just amazing. It just shows you how tenuous life on planet Earth can be, even for a song. Sorry for all those liberties that I took with the melody and the chords. It's an easy song to get lost in.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope you'll join us next week. As a nonprofit, we can only afford to put on great programming like this thanks to your support. Please visit us at neranenahArts.org for more information and to learn how to get involved.